So we're currently doing the Move Again series, which is looking at the book of Exodus. And today I'll be looking at Exodus 16, verse 30. It's short and sweet. It reads, "So the people rested on the seventh day." It's really short. In this part of Exodus, God, through Moses, instructs the Israelites to gather food for 6 days and rest on the seventh day. He instructs them to gather twice as much food on the sixth day, to bake and boil what they need, and to keep the remains for the next day so they can rest on the Sabbath. The Sabbath for me has been a new discovery in my walk as a Christian. Although I have been saved for quite a few years, I never really understood what the Sabbath meant. I always assumed going to church was the Sabbath, so as long as I attended church on Sundays, I was adhering to the commandment of keeping the Sabbath. But then again, with the coming of Jesus, is the Sabbath still relevant? The answer is yes, it's extremely important. Our modern world faces the same issues with the Sabbath as the Pharisees did, missing the heart of what God designed it for. While the Pharisees tried to rigorously obey and enforce their interpretation of the Sabbath, we in the modern age have mostly disregarded its importance. We have an "if I have time this week, I'll rest" attitude. In Mark chapters 2 and 3, we see the Pharisees outraged by Jesus as he picks grain while on a walk with the disciples and when he heals a man's hand on the Sabbath. In one of the instances, he responds to the Pharisees and says, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath." It's Mark 2, verse 27. The earlier scribes had good reason for interpreting the law carefully because they didn't want to break any laws by mistake. However, over time, their interpretations became more focused on the external obedience and how it looked, rather than cultivating an attitude of submission before God and enjoying the gift He's given us, which is to rest. There's an ambiguity in the term rest, which I think is so beautiful. Not all of us find rest the same way, and that's because we were uniquely created. For some, rest may be going on a hike, or sleeping in and going to a nursery to get your 56th plant, or for me, it's journaling at a coffee shop and driving somewhere beautiful. God created the Sabbath as a gift to mankind. It is because of God's abounding love and kindness that He calls us to rest. He knows our limitations as humans and invites us to take a day to rest in Him, allowing Him to renew and refresh our souls. To clarify, the Sabbath isn't just about taking one day a week off to do nothing, but rather it's a practice in how we should approach life. Practicing the Sabbath allows us to be reminded that we are His, and we don't need to constantly strive for things like the rest of the world does. Even God Himself took the seventh day to rest after creating the world, Genesis 2, verse 3, not because He needed it at all, but so we could mirror Him. There's this quote by theologian Marva Dawn. It reads, "A great benefit of Sabbath keeping is that when we learn to let God take care of us, not by becoming passive and lazy, but in the freedom of giving up our feeble attempts to be God in our own lives." I've been challenged by this, especially since the pandemic. I found myself plagued with the drive to work harder to regain the time and things that I lost during the pandemic, instead of trusting that God will restore it all. But rest requires faith. That's something I realized. Faith that when you stop working, striving, trying to do all you can to be enough or to get enough, that God has you and He will continue to have you. Casting your worries on God because He cares for you. So it says that in 1 Peter 5, verse 7. For the first half of my childhood, my family didn't own a car. So when my sister and I had to go to Maritzburg to visit my cousins, we had to take taxis. For the 3 Capetonians, ask a Durbanite next to you. There's so many of them. It's full of Durbanites. I could never sleep on that drive because, well, I was in a taxi. As terrifying as it is to drive on the road beside them, being inside of one is a whole other experience. I was scared we would crash at any moment. But when my mom eventually got a car and we'd do family road trips, I found myself being able to rest soundly in the back because I had faith in her ability to navigate the roads and to get us there safely. Do we trust God enough to stop and rest? To relinquish control and let go of the stresses of work, finances, plans, relationships, or lack thereof, whatever it is that plagues you, and just delight in Him. Growing up in church, I always heard God is sovereign. It was one of the many Christianese sayings that found its way in my mind that I would say, but I never truly understood. Another Christianese saying is, it's head knowledge, not heart knowledge, and all those things. The word sovereign on its own means to possess ultimate power. But if you put that in the context of God, it means, and this blew my mind when I read it, there is not a single thing in all of existence that God doesn't have his hand over. I don't know about you, but when I read this, more than anything, I was in awe of how majestic and grand God seemed compared to everything that I was struggling with. It illustrated God in a way that I never thought of before. It is the practicing of resting in him on one day of the week that prepares you not only for the 6 days that follow, but also for the times when you find yourself in a season that feels like the wilderness. I'll end off with a scripture that I feel illustrates the beauty that can come out of practicing the Sabbath and finding a day to rest. Jeremiah 17, 7-8 reads, "But blessed are those who trust in the Lord and have made the Lord their hope and confidence. They are like trees planted alongside a riverbank with roots that reach deep into the water. Such trees are not bothered by heat or worried by long months of drought. Their leaves stay green and they never stop producing fruit." I encourage you to plug into the river source, the life source that is God, in your moments of Sabbath. Thank you.